All right. Okay. We will call this meeting to order. Thanks, everyone, for being here. The first item today is the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's turn to the right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I like that they moved that just to keep it
Yeah, I do like it this way.
Okay. Moving on. 1.3 adoption of the agenda. So we have a nice compact agenda tonight. Do we have a motion? Thank
Second.
you. Anderson and Berg, thank you. Any discussion, comments on the agenda? Okay, with that, let's call it to a vote. All in favor of approving the agenda as proposed, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Fantastic. We have an agenda. 2.0, open forum. Dr. O'Connell? No. But we do, Amy has an introduction to make.
Good evening. We're pleased to welcome Gretchen Kleinsasser as the new principal at La Academia Dual Language Spanish Immersion and Kinder Academy. Gretchen was selected through a competitive process that included nearly 30 applicants. Staff, parents, students, and district administrators all participated in the process. Gretchen comes to us from the Eden Prairie Public Schools, where she was the associate principal of Oak Point Elementary School. Gretchen earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. She earned an educational specialist degree from St. Mary's University and a master's degree from Hamline University. Gretchen is bilingual in Spanish, so we're super excited to have a Spanish-speaking principal at La Academia. She comes to us with experience as an immersion teacher and also having taught in Mexico. She has a strong elementary instructional background, and this, along with the positive energy that she brings, is going to make her a great addition to the Eastern Carver County team. So join me in welcoming Gretchen. Yep, go ahead and meet everybody.
Hi, nice to meet you.
You're my person.
Yes, I'm your person.
Congratulations. Nice to meet you.
Gretchen, nice to meet you. Welcome.
to meet you.
Buenos dias.
It's buenas tardes, pero
Buenos dias. I was a test. I wanted to say.
See, I told you she
Got it.
Nice to meet you.
Congratulations, welcome.
Great.
I won't even do this.
I'm unabashedly not ashamed of my ignorance. Okay. Thank you for that, Amy and Gretchen. Welcome. Okay, moving on. Item 3.0, consent agenda. The standard stuff. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Well, and second?
Second.
Great, Colleran. Fantastic. Any discussion? Perfect. Then I'll call to a vote. All in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great. Consent agenda approved. Okay, we're cruising. 4.0, recommended action, contract ratification. Dr. O'Connell.
Well, just as a reminder, the negotiations with all of our other bargaining groups is on the opposite year that we do the teachers. And so the school nutrition services is the first of the contracts that I'll be bringing forward this year. So similar to the teachers' contract, we did a market analysis of the nutrition services positions with our comparison districts, and this contract seeks to bring our wages more in line with the average of our comparison district. The school nutrition group is composed of about 80 employees. The total compensation package is 6% for the two-year period, so a total of 6%. The compensation package includes an increase to wages each year. There were minimal language changes. As you probably remember, we had MSBA review all of our contracts the last time around, and so we've cleaned up a lot of the language. So we made some appropriate changes, but Nothing significant. Probably the one was on School Nutrition Association. They changed their levels of training, and so we had to make a switch with that. And so with that, the administration recommends board approval of the proposed contract agreement with the school nutrition personnel.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. So with this, we will vote on it, right, tonight? So I need a motion to consider this contract ratification.
So moved.
Thank you. Anderson Malone, I'll go with that. All right, any discussion? Any questions for Dr. O'Connell?
I have one, Jim. Do other districts do it the same way where they'll negotiate the teachers 1 year and all the other units the next?
No, not all. Some do, but there are some that actually do some of the other groups. They might split them half and half.
Okay, so we might be able to get some idea how we're doing in comparison with other districts in real time, not,
Correct.
okay.
Yep.
Good. Any other questions? All right. Well, I know what it's like to take care of the nutritional needs for 5 people. I can't imagine how these people handle for 10,000. So, with that, we should put it to vote. So, all in favor of ratifying the contract as proposed, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great. One down.
One
However
down.
many to go.
About 9 to go.
9 to go. Duly noted. Thank you. Okay, our ever-active, never-sleeping T&L team. Come on up.
Tonight, we're here just to provide you with some updates on our summer work, as well as to give you just a brief preview of some of our upcoming reports. And tonight, you can see we're a little bit smaller. It's just myself and Brian. So,
Okay.
I hope Brenda's someplace
She's a
nice with an umbrella.
injury.
I think she has ice on her ankle.
Oh, okay. Well, that wasn't what I was hoping for, something different.
So many of the slides we're going to show you tonight and cruise through are repetitive of what we showed you in May, because that's when we were talking about what was going to happen during the summer months. And when we talk about summer, it sounds like it's going to be this nice long stretch of period of time. And yet when we look back on it, it seems like it's gone really, really fast. So as we talk about some of the things that have gone on, just kind of capture in your mind all the stuff that we've tried to pack in and teachers have done over these weeks that we call summer. If you remember, we pulled this part of our definition of personalized learning out when we talked about the work that we're teeing up for summer, because it is really co-designing, that teachers were involved in the planning and the execution of all the things that we're doing to make sure that they're really at the center of this, so that they in turn will keep their learners, their young learners, at the center of learning when school begins again.
So this also should look familiar. This is the menu of opportunities that our teachers had that we shared with you in late spring. I think what this just provides an opportunity for us to reflect on is the great work that our teachers do every summer, both to improve their own individual practice, to work with their colleagues to support each other in those opportunities to continue to improve and grow, and really the amount of time that they spend over the summer preparing both mentally and tangibly for the new school year.
So Summer Academy was like right out of the chute. As soon as school was out, within days of leaving, teachers were back and were part of Summer Academy. And this, we talked about how it's a collaboration between these entities within the district, and then we offered for you some of the course highlights that were going on. So actually there were 76 sessions that we offered during Summer Academy, 45 different speakers or presenters, so some of them were repeats, but most were all ECCS staff. We did bring in a few outside people, including Outfront Minnesota. We brought Shannon Keebler in, our consultant, with whom we've been working on inquiry-based math to make sure teachers had additional opportunities there. So overall, we had just under 260 attendees.
The next area is the curriculum work that happens in the summer that's supported by teaching and learning, and often supported also by the superintendent's budget to provide additional time and support for our teachers. At the elementary, teachers were working on aligning assessments and resources to power standards and learning targets and taking advantage of some time to collaborate together around that work as well as instruction. And at the secondary, we were continuing our work around power standards and learning targets, that refresh and refinement process that we're doing, as well as continuing to identify those for additional courses. At the elementary, the work centered around English language arts, math, health, and science. And at the secondary, we had 17 different courses working on and finalizing those power standards and learning targets. And you can see we had 310 teachers, K-12, into work during the month of June on this work, and we paid teachers for over 1,437 hours of great work to get our curriculum ready for this upcoming school year.
As you know, we've been running a personalized learning cohort in the district so that all teachers and actually administrators, anyone who has a licensed professional, is coming in to be part of this cohort where they visit classrooms of different ages. During the summer when we offer it, we try to include some of the Personalized Learning Summit classes, so that's all part of the learning cohort experience. So this summer we had another 25 teachers complete the cohort, and now when we look to the number of people that are left, which is always changing because of people coming and going, we're at about 245 teachers that still have to complete the cohort, and so we'll continue that throughout this academic year.
Reading apprenticeship is a secondary reading approach that we've been using in the district. This started at Chaska High School as a part of the academy, and it's something that we're working to expand into other secondary schools. Last week, we had teachers come together for this training, and the focus of this is really engaging students in more reading. It's opportunities for teachers to teach how to read and write within their discipline. So the language of science or the language of math, recognizing that it's different skills depending on the content area. It's also an opportunity to support teachers in ways to model and teach kids practices really that focus on metacognition or their own awareness about what their brain is doing while they're reading and comprehending different kinds of texts. And it helps them with just general problem-solving strategies and ways to overcome obstacles when they're reading. So we had 35 additional teachers participate in these 3 days of training, and each of them spent 18 hours during this learning.
We also have offered technology courses and supports for teachers. Fred, you'll remember back to the old Tech Bites that we used to do years ago. This is kind of like Tech Bites on steroids, because it's not just about learning how to use the tool, it's learning how to apply the tool in a way that teachers can use with students. And so it really is that great connection with personalized learning. Teachers kind of know they're never going to be as tech savvy as the digital native, and yet they know also that they are the instructional leader who needs to help kids harness the tools in ways that are meaningful for their learning. So we had over 500 staff participate in the tech academies that started in June and are continuing. In fact, we had a group again in today to work on digital tools and the meaningful use in the context of teaching and learning.
As we continue to work on implementing standards-based learning and moving to standards-based reporting using Empower, we also had in teachers this summer for those revised and refined training, processes that we've been working on throughout this year. These have been mixed groups of teachers. The focus really has centered around teaching and assessing through the standards that have been identified. The morning of these days has been more centered on standards-based learning and that solid foundation. And then the afternoon is more of a supported work time that allows teachers to not only improve their practices around using or teaching through power standards and learning targets, but also creating those assessment plans and getting into Empower to really become more familiar with the logistics or the functionality of that program. And during this summer, both between June and August, we had 171 teachers participate in this standards-based learning and empower training. And that training will continue because there's multiple sessions that help teachers as they advance through the process of teaching through standards, assessing through standards, and then finally reporting by standards and providing that feedback to learners using the tool Empower.
I don't know that we've ever talked about this little thing before, but we had our Personalized Learning Summit on August 6th and 7th, and we had just under 600 attendees, a lot of outside district people, in the region, some out state. We had people from Texas come. We offered 130 different breakout sessions. The positive feedback has been incredible as we've started collecting additional feedback from people. The average score of a session is just over 9 points on a 10-point scale for our sessions that were offered, and people were super pleased. We had 2 keynote speakers each day, or one each day, Ravi Hatising on Monday and Virgil Hammonds on Tuesday. Both spoke in different ways about the need to have different pathways for learners to access and make meaning of learning for it to be really valuable to them. The Spark sessions that we had, Clint was part of that, and we had 4 or 5 kind of rapid fire sessions where it was like under 5 minutes talking about personalized learning and why it was important, and really invigorated people that way. Lisa and Clint did a great session on how school boards can be part of the action in moving forward personalized learning. If you remember, we have the Bush Foundation up here because they generously gave us $25,000 to help put on the summit. So huge thanks to them. Really, it was a great 2-day conference.
And then, of course, we spent some time with our leadership team, really having some opportunities to learn. And you can see over the course of the summer, there were 6 days that really targeted their learning. The first day was back in June, and we brought in teacher teams from our schools across the district to do some modeling of how are they really planning for personalized learning? What does that look like? How are they using data? How are they identifying resources? How are they planning their instruction to differentiate, to meet different learners' needs and interests? And how do they engage in that professional dialogue? With the idea of really how can principals help support teachers in that work? And then how can we cross-pollinate the good work that's already happening across our district? Additionally, on August 1st, we brought together our administrative team and all of our coaches, and we spent some time on knowing their why, planning and visioning for this coming year, looking at what is our current reality at the district level, at the building level, spending time reflecting on how did we do with last year's goals, what action steps did we complete, and what's next. Teams had the first go-around of really digging into that PL building self-assessment and starting to have dialogue about where are we at with personalized learning and what's next, or where do we want to deepen our work, or what are our priorities. So really, and then additionally, I guess I failed to say, we spent a little time celebrating the great work that happened. And then teams said, okay, so now as we think forward, what do we want to include in our Focus 5 for this coming school year? And then spent follow-up time as part of our district leadership team on aligning that work to McCrell and how can we leverage walkthroughs, classroom visits, teacher evaluation to help our teachers with their growth and development around the focus areas for each of our buildings. In addition, of course, our principals are heavily involved in the PL Summit, both coming to take in the keynotes and sessions, but also offering sessions. A large percent, I think more than 70% of our principals this year participated in offering sessions. So that just continues to grow each year. And they have opportunities not only to go and learn, but to learn by presenting in the dialogue that happens in those sessions. So a great deal of work around administrative learning this summer as well.
So all this kind of tees us up for workshop week, and Amy went over all of those components. which really we're just framing as sky's the limit. Clint, this picture should look hauntingly familiar. So as we move into workshop week, all of our buildings will be communicating or sharing their Focus 5 with staff, because those 5 goal areas, it's really important that staff know what they are. It's not a mystery, it's not a gotcha, it really is the collaboration and the coming together to make sure we can make movement happen. They'll be sharing action plans and involving instructional staff in that planning and actually those actions. Teachers will be completing a personalized learning self-assessment, which they've been doing every year, which then helps inform them about areas that, how do those dovetail with the building plans and with the district goals. We'll be looking at standards-based learning communication, both internally and externally across the district. And people will be starting to form their PLCs, and remember that it's a requirement that those have a student achievement focus, so that that SMART goal that they write, really the proof is in, does it make a difference in student learning. At the elementary, also during workshop week on that Thursday, we'll be having all elementary staff at Chanhassen High School in the auditorium to meet with our math trainer consultant, Shannon Keebler, who, even though teachers will be there who don't teach mathematics, we're really underscoring about a mathematic mindset. So this is really our year of mathematical thinking at elementary school. So whether I'm teaching art or Phi-Ed or math, there's a place that I can help coach kids about their growth mindset about mathematics and how they see themselves as a mathematician. So if I try, I'm a mathematician, and things like that. So we're kind of excited about that.
And then finally, we just wanted to preview some of the topics that we'll be addressing in the coming months here. You may remember last year, MCA results were released in early August. This year, with the new North Star Excellence and Equity system that Minnesota has designed to meet ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, as well as to align to the world's best workforce, MCA results were held to be released with those accountability measures. And so those embargoed results will be released to school districts on August 27th. And then the Minnesota report card and results are released to the public on August 30th. The press does receive those on the 28th. Often they like to talk with us so that on that public release date, they're prepared to publish some information. We will be back in front of you then at that first September meeting, September 10th, to walk through those results, not only looking at our whole district around reading, math, and science, but then also looking at our various student groups to see how we're trending and what's next for us as we plan forward and set those goals. Additionally, as you know, we'll have our annual report and our annual meeting for the world's best workforce. That's an opportunity for us to share our plans for this upcoming school year, to review our goals, our outcomes, and our strategies from this previous year, and then to, share with you some of the plans we have to move forward to, again, deepen and improve in the areas that are needed, as well as to take things to the next level in the areas that are trending in the right direction. And with that World's Best Workforce report, we'll cover those 5 critical areas that Minnesota has identified: all learners ready for kindergarten, all students reading by 3rd grade, closing achievement gaps, all learners college and career ready, and of course, all students graduating from high school. So with that, we'll provide that opportunity for public comment as a part of our open forum prior to reviewing that. That report will also be previewed with the Teaching and Learning Advisory in early September. So those are the things that we're bringing forward to you in September, and of course, building goals and the dashboard will follow as we head into the fall. So with that, anything we can
Me and Brian.
wrap around for you?
Board members, all right. Questions?
I just have a quick question about the curriculum writing time. So you said it's time for collaboration between the teachers, but so you say you're talking about 3rd grade math. Is it all 3rd grade math teachers? Is it a representative from each building? I mean, how do these groups get formed?
Typically, no. It's a building-based team so it may be a 3rd grade team in a building or a 3-4 building team, but it typically is building-based for that work. We only provide up to 5 hours because we have to keep the budget under control. So at most, they're gathering for 5 hours. And typically, they're looking at their work, for example, the Power Standards learning targets, and then looking at what sort of assessments are they using. One of the conversations that we really encourage teachers to have as they meet as a team is saying, what does it mean to meet this standard or this learning target? Because even though Amy has an idea, is it the same idea I have? And so we want to make sure that we're all on the same page, or they're all on the same page, so that we're providing clear communication to students and to parents, and that then the scoring and the grading actually reflect that. So
So
that's
if it-
really what that focus was.
So if it's mostly done internally in each building, though, how do we ensure that all of the buildings are kind of on the same page then too? Because that's a consistency issue again.
Right. So what all of this work that happens in the summer, then it comes back to the math or the language arts committee, and then it gets vetted through the committee. So because we can't just assume that all the work that happens is fantastic work, even though the majority of it is. So the work comes back to the committee, and then it's vetted, and then we provide it out to other staff so that we're sharing.
So you're taking kind of the brainstorming from each building and then figuring out what's the best parts, and then that's kind of what everybody gets.
Correct. And then it gets discussed at the committee level too, from an elementary perspective, because we can't bring people together. Now, at the secondary level, there is a lot more cross-pollination between the sites and buildings.
I think that's always been the challenge between elementary and secondary. You know, for AP government, maybe you have 4 teachers across both high schools or all 3 high schools. At the elementary, for math, at 4th grade, there's 25.
Right, yep.
So, which gets difficult to do. So I think it's typical for districts to do that curriculum work in kind of small batches and then share out through the buildings, which always does, again, kind of pose that challenge for elementary.
Great, thank you.
As a follow-up to Amy's question on the curriculum work, I knew we heard a lot of teachers talking about priorities, how many standards there were, and we were encouraging kind of the prioritization. Does that curriculum work help with that?
Yes, and I think just even moving through this past year, a lot of the clamor was as the year began, and the thing was we didn't add anything to the curriculum or to the standards, we just articulated it. And so it was when you saw the whole long list, it was daunting. And not only did you see it for math, but you saw it, if you're an elementary teacher, you saw it for language arts and social studies and science. And so it was an enormous overload of information to take in and to think, I have to teach all of this and respond to every learner about how they're doing in regard to each of these items. So having moved through the year, that was one of the huge things where people were like, oh, I guess this is what we've always done. It's just that I've looked at it in a different way. But yes, I think having the paid time to actually talk about it and say, what were those highlights? How did you assess this? And was it meaningful to the learners? And then comparing notes.
I think additionally, through the last school year, particularly through the spring, Brian and Chris worked collaboratively with the elementary curriculum teams to revise and refine the power standards and learning targets. So there was some reworking, some shifting, some combining, I think in an attempt to really have a fresh look and say, have we picked the right standards? And we don't need to identify everything we teach. We need to identify what's most critical that teachers or students can demonstrate that they've learned. So that is a continued work in progress, but I think that we have started to pare down or consolidate where it's appropriate.
Good, thank you.
Kind of on that same level, there was a lot of talk, I think, last year with the elementary level, with the power standards and the standards that were developed. And you'd mentioned there's a lot of work that was done with that. Do they feel like that's done now? Or do you feel like it's to the point where
I think we're at the end of the
starting to
beginning.
empower will be easier?
I don't know that it'll ever be done, Josie. And I mean,
Right.
for a teacher's work is not, I mean, you're always thinking about, I could have done this differently. And if I had done it this way, maybe I would have reached more kids or done. So I think that's just the nature of the job.
Yeah.
But it was interesting as we went through the refresh process, and, my goal was try to reduce the amounts of people weren't feeling so overwhelmed. And it was teachers saying, wait, no, we can't get rid of that one. That one's really essential. And it's important because, And so they were actually defending why we keep some of the, many of the things. And so it was great conversation, and them also saying, yeah, we could take that out, but maybe we just need to put these two things together. So the level of conversation and brainstorming and the collegiality and professionalism was incredible. And so having been through the year once now, going through it, I think we're going to be in a better place. Is it going to be seamless? No, but I think we're definitely in a much better place, and people feel more confident. Also last year at the elementary level, all the resources for mathematics were new, and at kindergarten and fifth grade, the resources for language arts were brand new. So other than La Academia, where the math will be new this year, the rest of the elementary sites won't have any changes to resources. So that's
So you feel like the refresh is complete, though? I mean, I understand
yes,
there
we
were
won't be
always-
changing anything this year. We're not.
We're not planning for elementary to need to
Yeah.
meet and do ongoing work.
Okay, great, thank you.
So the work this year with elementary will be implementing and talking and sharing resources.
And assessment
Yeah.
work.
Great, thank you.
Is your sense with the collaboration that in the past we've heard that it's chaos, and I don't know what I'm going to be doing, and all this is changing. Is your sense that with the collaboration, they're understanding that it's moving smoother or going more smoothly, or there's?
I think it's coming to terms with what the new normal is. Maybe that's a better explanation.
That's a better way to say it.
So I think we're all still navigating that, but it's, thinking that it's all going to just be fine and I'm going to go back to doing something the way it was, it's not going to work that way ever again. So I'm like,
Especially if it's pointed out to them that when it was the old way, we were always changing and doing new things every day anyway.
right.
It's just a different, perhaps more organized manner and collegial manner to get it done.
Well, it's the nature of being in something for a while is you always think in yesteryear it was better and easier, and the reality was it wasn't, but it was familiar.
That's good to hear.
The personalized learning cohort, what does that involve?
It involves coming together where we bring in a group of people. In the summer, we did 25, and so during the school year, we do subs, and we take them to different classrooms throughout the district so they see models of personalized learning in action. So if I'm a 12th grade teacher, I'm teaching something at the high school level, I may find myself in a kindergarten classroom for 45 minutes seeing what's going on in kindergarten classroom. And then when we come back and do a debrief after visiting several buildings, teachers are kind of like, wow, if they can do that in kindergarten, I guess my expectations need to shift for what's going on in 10th grade. So it really is to cross-pollinate about some good modeling. It's similar to what we did with administrators in June with bringing in teachers that we knew have great conversations and letting administrators see what's going on, and then having some debrief about that, saying, what could you learn if your observation were listening to teachers talk during a planning session? And they're like, I could learn a lot. So it really is meant to frame the why. Why are we doing personalized learning? It's not necessarily how am I going to go back and implement it, but having a strong notion of why are we doing what we're doing and why is this important.
And of the teachers that have yet to complete the cohort, give me a general sense of how many of those are secondary versus elementary. I'm guessing. I can't speak with authority right now. I hate to give you the wrong impression. I'm not sure. Okay. I mean, it would be my guess would be there's probably more people in the secondary that have yet to, because they haven't been as impacted by this, but that's fine.
I can find out an answer because we keep a spreadsheet of.
But this is, the goal is to have everyone, these 245 now, then to all go through this, and you have opportunities throughout the school year.
Correct.
To take them.
Yep, during the year in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, how many teachers went through it last academic year?
Yeah, again, we would have
Yeah,
to
it
look
was.
at the number of cohorts.
It was probably close to 175. I want to say.
Okay, all right, I'm just gonna, okay, so this is I'm just trying to get a sense for what we're doing to get them through this. all this stuff is great, and the participation numbers seem awesome. We're paying these people. They're doing this out of a commitment, but we're also, this is part of our funding. Do we need more funding? Do we need to have more dollars to support this? I mean, what's your sense of that? What would you do if you had more money?
I don't know if we had more time. I mean, we don't have any more time. I don't know that we could pack any more into the days and weeks that we have. So, yeah, I think,
What do you want to do next year to make it better?
I think it's continuing to really work with our teachers to understand their needs, what supports either aren't in place, what are their next steps, and how can we be responsive to tool them to continue to move their practice forward. So obviously we have some nice structures in place, but what fits into those structures is really driven by where we are as a district and what our teachers need and what we believe are our opportunities, both individually and collectively, as we assess how are we doing.
Yeah, when we set up the framework for the work in June, Tim, it was about listening to what teachers were saying they needed. And so when people were talking about, I have all of this stuff, all these standards or learning targets, and I'm not sure what assessment to use. So we really tried to tee that June work up in saying, we want you to come together. We want you to have conversations about what you have done. What does it mean to meet? What does it mean to approach? And then what sort of assessments would be logical to use for that? And, it doesn't have to always be the same. So if a child is able to show that he or she meets it in this way, that's great. But it has to have a common expectation around what it means to meet it, because we can't have just different expectations, but the expectation has to be the same. The mode of how they're showing it may be varied. And
I get that. I mean, that echoes what I've heard from teachers and what they've been telling me as they come to grips with this. Just stepping back for a second as I think about how, we're having conversations with parents about personalized learning, because it's becoming more, especially with Empower becoming, in many respects, the face of this, right? It's kind of bringing it to a more tangible kind of real level, right? It was kind of an abstraction. Okay, yeah, whatever. Go ahead and hocus pocus, black box learning stuff. But now it's like, oh, I got to deal with this Empower. What is this? Okay, so is it fair to say when we talk about learning targets and Power standards, that effectively what we've asked our teachers to do is to take a textbook effectively. So they had this nice textbook. Okay, this class, whatever it is, algebra, whatever, we're going to go through this textbook this year, right? And we've done this so we know kind of how to navigate through this textbook in a way that, prepares our kids best for success, however you want to define that. So now we're asking our teachers, instead of just know that textbook and how to work with that curriculum as proposed, now we've got to really delineate and break down into detailed, levels what it is that textbook was trying to teach, right? I mean, it's an impressive ask for our teachers to do. And I think that's, is that a fair characterization, first off?
Well, I wouldn't say that we use the textbook as the framework. I think the standards should have always been the framework. Now, whether or not that's played out that way, I think when you get a resource that you think is often aligned to some of the standards or most of the standards, it's easy to use that one resource as your primary. And there was a time where that was all there was. They're pre-internet, availability of other tools. So we definitely relied on the textbook. I think the shift is being more teacher-centered to more learner-centered. So it's thinking about the learner, and in doing so, having conversations about, it's not about what I taught, it's about what did they learn. And I think when you said the Empower being the face of, I kind of recoiled inside, because I hope for a parent, their child is the face of personalized learning. That when they're looking at their kid thinking, what did you learn today, and what are you learning tomorrow, and what's next for you, And the empowered being a tool to help communicate that, but certainly it isn't personalized learning, it's just the tool that we're getting to.
I admire that, but rainbows and unicorns are, I mean, that's an ideal. But as a practical matter, parents, it all comes down to results and grades, and yes, hopefully all that, they're having wondrous, educational experiences. But how does it impact their life? And it's like, I have this system, and I'm looking at tracking their homework, and I've got this behavior, right? And all of a sudden, whoa, what is this, right? That's, we hope to, don't focus on the tool, focus on the child and the learning, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, is my kid learning? How do I know if they're learning? Oh my God, this is, right? So it does, that's the reality. That's what we're hearing from parents. I don't know, is anybody?
I do think we're hearing that from secondary parents.
I think it's elementary a lot too, though, because they're struggling with having to look for it.
Elementary parents, or are
Yes,
we hearing?
I think I am.
I'm hearing it from parents that are
hearing
dealing with Empower.
Right, me too.
Yep, because it's hard to navigate.
Because that, it's like, okay, so.
So Tim, to your question about the textbook, I think what we're asking teachers to do is to really peel apart what is it they want their students to know and be able to do. So really dig deep into those standards and understand what are the elements that make up that standard and what kind of complex learning would the child do in order to demonstrate that. Then we're asking them to give the learner feedback connected to those targets or those elements, as well as that comprehensive power standard, and then to assess by that, where previously when we aligned resources to those standards and we gave the assessment, we knew what % of the learning the student had done, but we couldn't necessarily say, oh, they understand how to create an argument, but they're not doing well with citing textual evidence to defend their point of view. So we're going to work more on how they can dig into that resource and pull out ideas to support their argument instead of, I got 80%, let's move on. So it's really about being more specific and intentional about what it is we want that learner to know and be able to do. Have we given the learner feedback about where they are in that process? Have we given the parent feedback about where they are in that process? And can we assess what parts of that learning they've got and what they don't have yet, so we know what to do next? So I do think that is a big shift. And standards have been around for a while, like Brian said. Districts have been doing a lot of work to support implementing those standards. I think we're getting more and more intentional about the learner, not the teaching.
But far more detailed about those standards, right?
Correct.
I mean, you go back when we were in school, I don't doubt there's always been, to some degree, implicit standards. And where I'm getting at is, I think, what's our goal to roll? Going back to the comment about Empower, we're going to be rolling out to a large level this year. We've got a large, and we talked about it, we have a large communication mission this year, right?
Yep.
So I'm trying to, help underscore this narrative. As I talk to people, and again, I don't go to grocery stores much, and this is, another reason why I don't, because it becomes, okay, I talk about my understanding is, 40 years ago, your world was, a textbook and the library if you wanted to go through the card catalog. Okay, so you just defer to the textbook, and there's some standards implicit in why you selected that textbook and what you want the kids to learn. Now with the velocity and the availability of information, right, it creates a whole new dynamic. Kids can learn at much varied rates, and we all learn. Think about what we do in our daily life and how much, right? And we can be much more informed on something. We would have had to go to the library, Dewey Decimal, and go crazy, right? Now it's just natural language, and so it's a different world. And so this is all about empowering the learner, and then how do we measure that? So we now have to step back and be very detailed about what everything we want the kids to learn. How do we measure success? Because it's not just a textbook guide in our journey anymore, right? There's a lot of different resources that we can make available to help kids learn at, much more accelerated paces than they could before.
I think the other piece is there's a critical difference in what we're preparing kids for. I mean, our system as it was originally set up was set up to sort and compare kids and decide what they would do next. Now we need to have all of our kids prepared to be producers and contributors in high levels. I mean, their jobs have changed, roles have changed, and so we need to know what is it that all kids have to be able to know and be able to do. We can't, differentiate or say some kids don't need to learn, how to write an argument. We know that in our world, all kids need to be problem solvers. All kids need to be able to defend an idea. So we're asking kids to use different skills in the work that we're asking them to do because of the way the world has
Because
changed.
the world, yep, no, that's an excellent point. So I apologize, that's my indulgence, but I think you understand, I'm trying to bring up, I think these topics are all gonna, come home to us, and for this guy over here, who's got the hardest job in the room right now, well, we all have hard jobs, but I think that's, we're good, communication, and we've talked about it, pretty extensively is a big task, and that's why this is fantastic what you're doing, and I keep, what do we, what I always ask, what resources do we need, and how can we do it better and do more, and what do you need? So just, because this is the first time I recall seeing an overview of these programs from the summer. I presume there's been summer education and development been going on forever. This is not the first year, let's pull the teachers out of the house. But it all looks great, and I like the purpose around it and what we're trying to, to do to underscore this little tagline we have.
I think what's really important about what happened this summer, as far as all this work with teachers, is that really is the key. They're really the key to personalized learning. And I understand that a lot of people do collapse, empower, and that tool with personalized learning, and that's a communication battle that we're gonna have to face. And hopefully some of the graphical user interface, will help us with that as well. But this work in preparing our teachers for exceptional personalized learning is the key to getting there. And I'm really encouraged to see as many teachers as we have. I'd like to see a few more get involved there. But you can bring a horse to water, and you've done a really, really good job. I'll keep that analogy. I'm creating a really nice job for them. So thank you so much for this work, and our journey continues.
Yep.
It does.
One of the gratifying things out of the summit that I heard from teachers who attended was just saying, because there were so many people from other districts presenting, they said, wow, we're really ahead of these people. And I thought, that kind of explains some of the pain. We're on the bleeding edge of all of this work. And so when we hear comments it's like we have to remind ourselves and help them know that we're changing something that has deep roots. And because everyone knew how the old system worked, it really is very hard and very painful work. But from all those other people attending, they all want to be where we are. So I know we're doing the right work. We just need to get through the tough
Let's
spots.
just be cautious. Let's not use that phrase. Because we have parents that, they don't want their kids to be the one that's, spilling the blood, right? So
Fair enough.
we'll be on the very cautious leading edge so that, nobody is, unduly injured. And
I think
We
it
have
is.
lots of safety nets.
It is a
Band-Aids, I guess.
As we talk about this, it is going to take a long time to change this process. So we absolutely have a long way to go in terms of communication with our community and our parents, but also our students. And as our students can start to explain better, that helps move parents along. And those of us as parents, you realize that. As part of that PL Summit and my Spark session, just talking about the model that we're functioning under, and the reason it's so hard to let go, as it started over 100 years ago, we had 6% of kids graduating from high school when we started this model, right? And the difference is, as my kids have moved into this district, and I shared that day, and fortunately I have 3 girls and they play school a lot at home. They actually play school differently now than they used to. and they start talking about these as they work collaboratively with their stuffed animals and with their babies, and they're using power standards and learning target language and writing it down, right? So as we think of our kids, their perception of school and how it serves the learner is very different than ours. And so as we're focused on this battle that's right in front of us and communicating and helping people understand that, but also understanding there's this generational change that will continue to happen as we move along and others move along with us, and that's the beauty of that PL Summit. So we just appreciate you hanging in there with us, and again, we have a long way to go in terms of continuing to communicate this and get this out there as to why we should be doing this. It is the right thing to do.
So we have seatbelts. Fred, you have a question?
Yeah, question and a comment. There's a lot of trees in the forest, and it occurs to me that there's some way we can combine PR and you and Jackie and community ed to somehow pull together groups or forums for parents to be able to discuss their personal relationship with personalized learning and what they understand, and what they see as strengths and weaknesses. If we had a continuum, 0 being the parent who has no clue to the person who really understands, would you say more are towards the 0 or more towards the, I really get this? That's an impossible question.
Yeah.
I know.
I think the hard part for me to answer that question is because even those that really understand it, the personalized learning aspect, up until you get to the grading piece, and then it's like,
Which is where I was going with that.
That shuts down.
When I was dealing with talking with the group from Chaska High School, we had that committee that, remember, that was talking about Empower and putting it in, and one of the young ladies, one of the mothers, was charged with explaining to the group what was happening in the committee, and she didn't no idea what to say, because she was getting personalized learning and Empower so enmeshed with each other that she couldn't separate the two and possibly explain it. If we could somehow figure out a way to do that, like that, and I know you'd probably have a somewhat full plate now anyway, but one more thing to think about. If we could just bring parents together and they could sit next to somebody, oh, I had that problem. Let me tell you what I did. Let me tell you what the teacher did. And that leads me to my positive thing. That was positive too. For me, that was a positive question. Three of us will remember about 7 years ago, we sat in this very room and we said what we wanted to see in change in schools in our district was to know not if Johnny was improving compared to Sam, but was Johnny improving according to where he was a year ago. The light bulb has finally come on with me, and that's exactly what we're doing. Not only are we helping him learn what he needs to learn, but he knows he's learning it, and he's better off because of that.
Yes,
Right?
that's right.
We're
That's
so
right.
far ahead of where we were 7 years ago in that regard.
And I think we forget that, Fred. Honestly, we've been on this journey since we implemented secondary reading. And we implemented that in the fall of 2009. So we've been on this journey for almost 10 years. And you're right, it's not about, everybody comes in and, we move them all, and one kid might be here, and one kid might be here, and they all have to get to here. So some really make a lot of improvement, and some barely. We're saying, Johnny is the best Johnny. He's gonna get as far as he can.
And now we're evaluating what Johnny has done to improve himself. And he knows that, mom and dad know that. And that's all that's important.
And telling him what he needs to do next.
Until they get to
Yeah,
the school.
exactly. And be prepared to be able to tell him how we can help him get even further and what he can do to get even further.
And so just to follow up that too with Empower, do we have for like back to school nights, there's an Empower training? I think we had that last year do you know if we have that for back to school nights? And then as far as middle school goes, they have curriculum night. Is there a session that they can do that for Empower there?
Yes, we have a series of communication for back to school night. A lot of the back to school night stuff, parents really aren't thinking at this point, how do I use Empower?
Yeah.
So we're sort of
True.
leaning more towards the why we get into the year, that's when we're pushing out, here's how you use the tool, here's how you get questions answered. To Fred's point, we're looking at some webinars where parents can log in, real-time support from district staff.
I think you guys have good videos out there too that kind of just picked how to do it, how to go through there, so they can just go to a video whenever they want to. And as more as we keep communicating that numerous times, they see it the 10th time, I think that's helpful to, at least sometime they'll see it.
And we're also working with teachers and principals to really resend that information at the points when it will be used. So when the teacher enters the first information into Empower, a note goes to parents with the video that says, and here's how you access it. We also continue to work with Empower to improve the tools that are there, and the class log should make it much easier for our parents to see what their learner is doing starting this fall. So a lot of positive changes are coming that we plan to help improve the communication and the access.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for all you do. Thanks for letting me indulge that discussion. I figured we had the time tonight to do that, so why not?
Very good.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That takes us now into 6.0, communications from the school board. Poster woman for emphysema, or whatever.
Start with the frog, sure.
You can feel free to defer and say nothing. You have a legitimate excuse,
I do.
being tuberculosis or whatever it is that,
Bronchitis, but that's okay, I'm being
Bronchitis.
treated. But I will share, as they said, Clint and I were able to present at the Minnesota School Board Association. We actually, I think, were the top. We had some of the most participants. I think we had over 100. We had like 130 participants, and there was only 250 participants there. So half of them came to our session. I think that's really when you realize, and there were some of the tweets that came out, tweeting out our definition of personalized learning and tweeting out some of these things. That's when you realize that other boards are really interested in this work and just don't know how to get there. It is frustrating for us, and it's hard to stand there and go, we have all the answers, because we don't. We're just further ahead. And I think we're the only district that is doing it all grade levels, all curriculum. And that's a challenge. A friend of mine wanted to enroll her kids in this district. Her kids had gone to another district. And she said, that district really does a lot with personalized learning. And I said, well, that's interesting, because that district is really doing a lot of personalized learning in one subject area. We're really pulling it across. So we do have to remember the scale of what we're doing is much more complex. But that was a great session. And then the next day, we had a very small group, and Josie was part of that, thank you. Just really talking about some of those principles, how do they make that next step? So that was a nice session as well. And then very shortly after that, I lost my voice. So not much has happened since. So.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right, I do not have a report.
Nor do I.
Josie?
I just wanted to say, like Vern said, I was at the Personalized Learning Summit. It was good to see what the hype is about. Every year there's a big hype about it, so it was good to actually be there and see what it's about. There were some good speakers, and it seemed like a lot of teachers, it was really beneficial to them. So it was good to see it hands-on. So thank you guys for everything that you guys do for that. It seems like a very beneficial summit for a lot of people that attend, so thank you.
It's a great success. Sorry I could not be there, but I will hopefully be there next year. So we'll move on to 6.2. That is you.
On to me.
Mr. Superintendent.
All right. Just a couple of quick things. You've heard a lot about what's been happening here, but really, we are really geared up for kickoff here as we get very close to the start of the school year, really starting with as Teaching and Learning mentioned, that administrator retreat that included coaches, and that started August 1st, followed shortly by the Personalized Learning Summit, and then DLT, our leadership team, bringing them together to really kick off the year. And this week, we are welcoming new teachers, over 50 of them. So they're going to get 3 days of information overload. Their eyes will be great big as we welcome them tomorrow, and they get some lunch tomorrow. And we're back on Wednesday with some more stuff. Breakfast with Chaska Rotary on Thursday morning. And so again, they're really bringing in the best of the best, providing them, with support to be successful in their transition to the district, and ensuring the work that we're doing around personalized learning, they're ready to go day one. So, but it's always really exciting to have that day here. And then next week is workshop, and off we go. So again, we're in full gear now, and raring to go. So looking forward to it.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. With that, we are going to move to item 7.0, which is a closed meeting to discuss pending litigation and a potential settlement regarding Min-OSHA citation issued March 8th, 2018 pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D05, subdivision 3B. Please make sure you got I can get the parentheses for you too if you need. So we will go into a closed meeting, and I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Logue Anderson, thank you very much. So with that, we will break to move into that. Thanks, everyone, and have a good night. We'll see you at the big kickoff.